Om Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Ajunulambita Bhujo Kanagavadato Sankirtanai Kapitaro Kamalaya Daksho Vishwambaro Dwijabaro Yugodharma Valo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavotaro Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodito Gurudaya Pushpabandho Chitro Sando Tamonudo Vandeham Shri Ramakrishna Abhaya Charano Sago Sukado Paramanando Sundaro Subala Priyo He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchan Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Shri Gauri Vaishnava Guru Parampara Ki Jai Bhakti Vinod Parivar Ki Jai Sannyasi Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premanandi. Good morning. Second morning. Second morning. Everyone okay? So tonight, or this morning, I should say, we're going to continue our discussion from the preface, the preface of Circle of Friends. But I would first like to give a gift of one book tomorrow. Did you? You don't have one, right? No? Please, tomorrow. Follow the example of Maharaj. Everyone should have a book. So let me turn to that. And yesterday evening, we talked a little bit about the Gita edition that was published, some thoughts about that, and how I approached that. And we had done that in an earlier lecture. It came out different, so it's okay. And then we, earlier in our discussions, we began to discuss the preface. And as you know, some of you may know, my previous book is entitled Sacred Preface. It's a book that is a commentary on the Mangala Charana, the auspicious invocation, or to put it in contemporary English, the sacred preface of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. I think there are about 14 verses there. So it's an elaborate commentary on all of those verses, which take us from Guru Tattva and its nuances, Siksha, Diksha, and so on and so forth, all the way through the significance, the ontological position, contribution, and so on and so forth of the members of the Panchatattva, who are all mentioned in the seed verse, the first verse of Krishnadas Kaviraj Mangalacharan, when he says, Vande Gurun Isha Bhaktan Ishan Isha Avatarakam Tat Prakasham Tat Shakti Krishna Chaitanya Sanyakam. So from there, 13 more verses, if you will. What is it? 3 of them about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his ontological position, his internal and external, if you could call it that, the latter, reasons for his descent, and so on and so forth. Also, there's a the Namaskar verse, where Krishna's verse pays respects to the presiding deities of the book, or Nityananda, so on and so forth. 5 verses about Nityananda, 2 about Advaita, 1 about Gadadhar and Srivas, and so forth. So anyway, that book is called Sacred Preface. So uh, the preface to these types of books is the sacred texts of the Hindus in practically all of the disciplines or the paths, whether it be books related to karma, marg, gyan, yoga, or bhakti. This idea of a sacred preface, we'll find it. So it's in Sanskrit again. It's called Mangala Acharana, so which means invoking auspiciousness, and it's such a Mangala or sacred preface has certain elements in it that it's constituted of, and to and it, in essence, there are three. There can be more. There are three, and there are three that are invoked in Chaitanya Charitamrita by Krishnadas Kaviraj. And so I've included them in the sacred preface, if you will, to this book as well. And those are elements are a Namaskar verse, a Vastu Nirdesh verse, and an Ashirvad verse. So Namaskar, of course, means to pay respects, and to whom? To the presiding deity of the book. Hmm? And the Vastu Nirdesh verse is a verse that, in a very condensed form, tells what the book's about. Hmm? The Ashirvad verse is a verse where the a blessing is offered to the readers, and often it's explained who's eligible. The book is aimed at a certain type of adhikar, eligibility, persons who um, have the qualification to read and understand the verse. So Namaskar, Ashirvad, and Bhastanudeshan Ashirvad. Now, in one of our previous discussions, we began by analyzing the Namaskar verse of this sacred preface to this book, right? Mm. And also how we have uh, composed the sacred preface in a way that is less formally traditional without compromising any of the substance, and thereby making it more perhaps approachable, user-friendly for the modern world, especially English-speaking world. And this is a characteristic of the book overall, because many of our core texts are, of course, very old, written in Sanskrit or in Bengali. And whenever you write a book, of course, you're thinking of as far as you can, what the audience will be, but it's hard to think what they'll be like 500 years later, what kind of thoughts you might have to contend with, and so on and so forth, which only speaks to the need for what? Right, Guru Parampara, right? To continue commenting, a continuous, ongoing commentarial on the nature of the significance, the implications of the revelation, the texts and so forth, which all of our Gaudiya core texts, of course, are. Most of them are expansions, if you will, upon or extended commentaries on the Bhagavatam. There are literal commentaries on the Bhagavad, and then there are entire books that are based on the Bhagavad theology and philosophy that are unto themselves, a particular book. Hmm? If the Bhagavad is ultimately about bhakti as it is, which Narad told Vyas, you made a mistake. No wonder you're not feeling fulfilled. You have not, in all of your writing, in all of your compiling and editing, have emphasized in no uncertain terms the efficacy of bhakti. Hmm? It's there, but the paths of karma and jnana are more overtly uh, have been articulated more overtly. So you've done a disservice to everybody. So this way, then he told them, Samadhi nusmarata dvicheshtitam. You're very qualified. You can sit in samadhi, do that, meditate on the Bhagavad Purana, and write it again. So it came out as the Srimad Bhagavatam, where in no uncertain terms, bhakti is underscored its efficacy uh, as a path that is from the nirgun and thereby has a capacity to take us to the nirgun. If your path is governed by sattva or karma, as the case of gyan, yoga, or the latter, karma, the karma marg, governed by sattva or rajas, they don't have the efficacy to take us unto themselves to the nirguna. Only if bhakti is factored in can sattvic, gyan, yoga, niskam, karma, and so forth be efficacious in terms of bearing the fruit of of mukti, liberation. So bhakti unto itself, then what must be the power of that is the idea, and what must it do if bhakti is embraced unto itself as not only as the means but as the ends, because it is nirguna. So it means it has a role in transcendence. Sattvagun, Rajagun, they don't have any role in transcendence. And if you factor just a little bhakti in, you can you can bhakti will take the shape of like a sattvika bhakti, and help the jnanis achieve their goal, for example, of brahmasayuja. But then she retires, becomes unmanifest, and they get a kind of liberation that's indistinct because they haven't understood their sheshatva, they are the that their swarup includes Jivera Swarup Hoy Nitya Krishnadas, right? This is the very dharma of the jiva, dharma, its function, purpose. It is actually itself is only known as much as it knows God. So you can say itself is in God to be realized, or you can say self is in itself. It's both, actually. It's because it's a part and parcel of God. So its full bliss is known when it knows God, as in it knows itself in relation to Him. That's a whole other topic, interesting, but the efficacy of bhakti, right? And then the Goswamis came and they churned the Bhagavatam, and brought out from the Bhagavatam, the cream, as it's described itself, Shruti Saram Mekam, the essence of the Shruti, Srimad Bhagavat. Gauri Vaishnavism is famous for something that you wouldn't necessarily want to be famous for, not having a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, which is what distinguishes one's system of thought from others by way of making it a school of Vedanta. So you have to have a commentary on the Vedanta sutras, the sutras of Vyas, the Brahma Sutras. So that's conspicuous by its absence. But of course, we make the claim citing, for example, Garuda Purana. What does it say? Garuda Purana says one number of things about the Bhagavatam. It says Gayatri Bhasha Rupo So. It is a commentary on the Gayatri mantra, which is the flute sound of Krishna, from which all other Vedic mantras come. But it's the Samaveda of the Vedas, which is the hymns, beautiful hymn prayers and hymns of the Veda, Samaveda of the Vedas. Yeah, well, the line, there's four of them. Well, anyway, one of them is that it's a natural commentary. Forget the Sanskrit, forgive me, on Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is the kind of thing you see that the Goswamis, as I said before, they took the ecstasy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which was overt evidence for his spirituality, the likes of which we don't have anything to compare it to. And that's just an objective, it's not just a sectarian statement, it's an objective fact. And in the religious history of the world, there are any number of saints, sadhus, and even avatars and so forth. But the extent to which any of them embodied ecstatic love of God cannot be compared to the extent to which we find it manifest in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Super extraordinary. And there are just numerous personal accounts of this, texts about it, and so on and so forth. So what was it all? What is he about, right? They could understand, and they sought then to locate that ecstasy on the map on the map or on the standard books of knowledge, whether they be historical knowledge for the Indians, Puranas served as scientific knowledge, religious insight, spiritual wisdom, and so on and so forth. These were the books, the sacred books. It was a sacred culture, right? So they located him on there. They found verses. This is speaking about, this is speaking about. But someone said, well, it doesn't sound, I don't know, that's, you're stretching that interpretation there. Not very overt. But the point, of course, is he better be in the scripture, or which, we could throw out the scripture is incomplete because he's overtly, obviously, what the scriptures are talking about as an ideal. That's undeniable. So it's just academic to go back and, okay, well, this verse talks about him, this one does here. And you may think, well, that could be interpreted differently. You say, yeah, it could be until Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in the world. And then you have to change the interpretation to how it really should be understood. Krishna Varnam, Trisa Krishnam, Sangopangastra Parshadam, Yagnaya Sankirtana Praya, Yajantihi Sumedasa. Verses like this were never translated to or understood to refer to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu because he hadn't even appeared. But once he appeared and then Jiva Goswami explained it like that, you go, well, of course. I mean, that makes, how could you think otherwise? Some of the verses cited are more, less powerful and compelling, but he's in the scripture, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Deep, deep, deep inside, right? The Mahabhav. If bhakti is there, then bhakti reaches its apex, its zenith in the person of Sri Radha, Mahabhava Swarupani. So they located his ecstasy on the map. And then they churned that out. These bhakti shastras, we refer to them, like Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Ujjval Nilmani, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and so forth. These are our scriptural canon, right? But these are old books, and they're written by largely by scholarly devotees of the time who knew the Sanskrit language and Bengali, and they're writing, and certain things are, of course, just understood by the audience of the time that wouldn't be understood by us if we read the book. It kind of goes without saying. But the audience of the time, you understand where they're at, and then you present the book accordingly. You try to cover as much ground as you can in that regard, but it's hard to do that for 500 years ahead of time. Not that the message won't be pertinent 500 years from now. Indeed, Rupa Goswami's book is selling more now than ever before, right? Thanks to our paribar, our particular lineage within the Gaudiya Sampradaya, Bhakti Vinod Parivar Ki Jaya, right? So, therefore, we need ongoing commentary. And as it comes to mind, someone asked me just yesterday that in your Bhagavad Gita edition, in the 14th verse of the first chapter, Krishna is referred to as Madhava and Arjuna on the chariot. And in your commentary, you said that through Sanjaya, the word Madhava here, among other things, which are described in the commentary, indicates that that this book, it studied carefully, it points to the height of Braj Bhakti, right? Again, we talked a little bit about this last night, the fact that Krishna was on at Kurukshetra earlier and what happened there. Now he's going to talk about Dharma to Arjuna. Will not the Prema Dharma idea come out a little bit, Well, ask Arjuna, right? What did he say? In the form of Ramananda Roy. He got it. In other words, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, we find the conversation between Ramananda Roy and Krishna. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Roy, Hmm? So here we find the conversation is, and Krishna as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was asking the questions, and Ramananda Roy is giving the answers. Arjuna is giving the answers. It's as if Krishna said, "Well, let's check. How much did you really understand from that conversation we had for an hour or so before the battle?" Hmm? And Arjuna understood pretty well, right? Hmm. He went so far that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had to cover his mouth. Oh my God, don't let that, you understood that. I said it so covertly previously. But so it's okay that you know it, but we should spread that everywhere. That's such a secret, right? Of course, the topic of Arjun, we talked at some length, right? It is Sakyabhav, and how through Sakyabhav we find the Bhagavad Gita. An instance, one of many that we cited, of how Sakyabhav has played a role over the centuries in distribution of Krishna Bhakti, and particularly within our sampradaya, laying stress on the virtues and the glory of Madhurya Rasa. Mm. Again, Nityananda Balaram has the chance to speak about it openly in Gaur Leela, and he took advantage of that opportunity. Mm. Um, but for a moment, if we perhaps we should examine the person, a complicated person, Ramananda Roy, who Mahaprabhu said was Arjun, but we find in books like Gaur Ganadesh Deepika, it seems that there are different opinions about that. Hmm? Some of you may have read the book. It's a book that describes who's who in Gaur Leela is who in Krishna Leela. Because as I said the other night, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associates sometimes through a spiritual epiphany thought Chaitanya he must be Krishna himself. Then they hesitated and thought, well, Krishna is not alone. Like we had the question last night after the discussion from Krishna Karn. You said that Prabhupada said Krishna is more beautiful in the association of Radha, or we were reading it the other day, he's more beautiful in the association of his friends, right? But he's supposed to be all beautiful. You were saying he's all beautiful. But there is no Krishna without his friends. And that's the beauty of Krishna. Pleasure of Krishna is only the pleasure of his devotees, right? And they are the personification of love that he is the object of. So you have to have the two. A fellow once told me, I think I should be a guru. I said, well, does anybody else think like that? You know, you got to have you got to have the students, right? And so, so, of course, these associates of Mahaprabhu, it shows just to have the question, well, if he's Krishna, where are his associates? That shows how much they know about Krishna. Who would have thought of that, right? They're thinking in terms of the reality of the metaphysic of Abheda Bhed, which they're actually part of in another Leela now, and they don't know it because this is Sadhaka Siddha Bhumi, the Bhumi, the land, Navadvip, where sadhakas are in a drama, and their role is to play that of a siddhas, excuse me, are in a drama, and their role is to play the role of a sadhaka. And the nature of these leelas is that it's not that I'm a siddha and I'm going to play the role of a sadhaka. They're playing the role of the sadhaka so well that they don't know that they're a siddha. Mm-hmm. So what kind of example did they set then, right? Especially Rup Sanatan, who were singled out by Mahaprabhu the Goswamis to set an example by their character, as well as to write and so forth and so on. So Kavi Karnapur was one amongst others who uh, sought to identify the associates of Chaitanya. So they realized it's us. And here we are in another Leela. Oh my God. And then that window would close, and then they would just carry on worshiping Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the ecstasy of Sankirtan and pursuing Krishna Lila, and then they would see themselves in Krishna Lila and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Gaur Nitai would turn into Krishna and Balaram, and so on and so forth. Um, One of my disciples said to me once, he said, Krishna Lila seems really exciting. It's got all the intrigue of Parakiya and so on and so forth. But Gaur Lila seems a little boring in comparison. I said, you haven't understood Gaur Lila then. Right? It comes out of Krishna Lila, the essence of the Parakiya. It's coming out in the form of Gaur Lila. And if you could imagine that everything that is said in, for example, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu about the angas of bhakti, that they can do this, they can, once chanting this can happen, once chanting that can happen, once seeing the deity, Ratha Yatra, this can happen. Rupa Goswami is saying there, we have evidence that this has happened before. So that power of that happening to you by participating in this particular anga of bhakti or that limb of bhakti is there. It might not happen, but it could. It has, that power is there. So then you're encouraged to draw that power from those angas of bhakti. But imagine if all of those things that could happen every time you pick up the mridanga, and you see the deity, and so this is Gaur Lila. It's rather exciting, and it opens suddenly, like the Red Sea, something's parted or something like that, like the Jamuna parted, and Krishna and Vasudeva could take Krishna across to the Jamuna or to Vrindavan. So the sky opens, or whatever, how to describe it, and they're in Krishna Lila. Then that window closes back into Gaur Lila. So Krishna Lila is inside of Gaur Lila. It's the more, it's not the less, it's the more. The limits of Krishna Lila that were experienced by Krishna in terms of tasting rasa, to overcome them, his rasic tendency is so powerful that they would be overcome. And how would they be overcome? By extending the Leela, by an encore, encore appearance. That is Gaur Leela. That's not different from Krishna Leela. There's Prabhupada did the painting for the first canto of the Bhagavatam. He was the art director for that before he ever came to the United States. Later in the United States, when we published his Bhagavatam for the first canto, he preserved that artwork and updated it a little bit. But it's basically a central lotus surrounded by like a blue sky in which there are so many Vaikuntha planets, Shringa, Vamana, where the different avatars are manifest and so forth, for their different devotees. And in the center of that lotus is Krishna Loka, not Krishna Loka, but the Braj part of Krishna Loka. Krishna Loka is divided into Braj, Mathura, and Dwarka, right? So he just focuses on the center of the center. That's called the Gokul, the center of the lotus of Golok. That's called Gokul. And that's that center that appears on earth, Gokul. So that center, and in that center, you see Radha and Krishna, right? But then you look a little closer, you see what's going on behind it. There's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performing Sankirtan, right? If you look at Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very closely, you see he's a sadhu. You look more closely and take help from the scriptures and so forth, you see, well, he's more than a sadhu. He's an avatar. Then you look closer and you see he's avatari. You see Krishna. It's like one of those things where you look at it and you turn it like this, and you see something else, and you see something else, something like that, many faceted. So you look enough at Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you'll see Krishna. If you keep looking, you'll see Radha. You see 2, 1, 2, 1, right? So Gaur Lila, very special, and the associates, Gaurang Der Sangi Gani Nityasita Kori Mane. They're all eternal associates. They're from another Lila. You can't come out them. There's no meaning to Krishna without these devotees. Mm. There's no Yashodanandan if there's no Yasoda, right? There's no Radhanath if there's not a Radha, so on. So Kavi Karnapur, he researched scriptures, he interviewed different devotees, had them on his podcast and everything, giving their learned opinions. You associated with this devotee, what is his nature? What does he derive from being in his association? And then they put together it's a spiritual kind of a conjecture. Once I made the point that Pujapad Sridhar conjectured that Prabhupada was situated in Sakirasa. One of my god sisters complained and said, that's mental speculation, conjecture. No, it's not mental speculation, that kind of conjecture. When we conjecture about the significance of revelation, the spiritual kind of a conjecture, the implications, for example, of the text, what's the meaning, and so on and so forth. These conjectures, this is called what we call Shastra Yukti, not Kevala Yukti. Yukti means well, conjectures. Right? Kevala Yukti means to separate our inquiry, our discrimination, intellectual pursuit from revelation. That happened in Europe at a certain point, and it's now largely philosophy is separated from revelation. But the reason about revelation, that's called Shastra Yukti. That's useful. So whether it be the book or the sadhu, is to conjecture about such. And how will you conjecture? Well, you look at the scripture and you'll think, this is the nature of that sentiment or this bhava. And this is how it has expressed itself at different times. And so you draw together some evidence and you make a case, right? So, for example, Puja Pachidamar said, well, I read the poem. He started there. I read the poem, and he had memorized the poem of Prabhupada on the Jaladuta, where it's divided really into two sections. The first section is all about Sharanagati, and the second section is all about longing, the longing of bhava, surrender and bhava. He desired, he deserved to desire, right? He deserved, like I said, if you want to go to India, okay, first get your passport, get your ticket, get a little money, then come to me and talk about going. Then I'll say, okay, now let's talk about going to India. Otherwise, you can hear a little something about it, but you want to be preoccupied with going, put these things in place. So Sharanagati must be there. Sharanagati, we erect a dramatic stage on which the Leela will be performed. You erect it in your heart, then you can say about Krishna Leela, it is a drama coming, what does they say? Coming near you, something like that. Soon to be, soon to be appearing in your hometown of your heart. Once that stage is erected. So the sadhana bhakti is all a focus on Shraddha, Sharanagati. These two correspond. The inner faith corresponding with the outward expression of surrender, submission. And then Bhava Bhakti is characterized by longing, longing for the attainment. And so Tomaro Melane Bhai Abarashe Shukapai, Gocharani Guritin Bo, Kotta Bani Chutta Chuti, Banekai Lutta Puti, Shedin Kovihabimor. Does it sound playful? Lutta Puti, Chutta Chuti, Shedin. This is the very language that Prabhupada used. It's filled with the feeling of happy, friendly life, joyful, somersaulting through the forests playfully, rolling on the ground, cowherding throughout the day from forest to forest. Kotavani, all the bonds, going through them every day, all chuta chuti, tumbling and rolling and playfully, cow herding, tomaro milane by, abarase sukapai, gocharani guri din bor, all throughout the whole day, gocharani guri din bor. I will herd cows with Krishna. Prabhupada is longing like this. It's like you couldn't imagine a clearer, or you couldn't find a clearer statement. This is he's written in his private moments on a boat. He didn't have an audience really to speak of. He didn't know what would happen. He's asking in the poem, first half, for the power to do the work of Bhakti Siddhanta, and he's thinking, if you'll give it to me, then I'll do that work, and then this is what I want to go to. As a result of that, this will be the fruit of that. The fruit of that own deliverance, and I'll enter into the coward leelas of Ram and Krishna forever. And of course, he has a refrain to the verse too, where he very powerfully gets the attention of his friend. The title of the prayer, I forget the Bengali title, but in English it says the prayer to Lord Krishna. So he says that, how does it begin? He says, Krishna Tava Punya Habib, Krishna Tava Punya Habib. Bhai means Krishna, my friend, my dear friend, Krishna. Please pay attention here. Heads up, Krishna. Buddy, he says, listen, pal, heads up. I want to give you a lesson in morality here. Yeah. If you want your life to be morally sound and correct, then you have to please Radharani. And this is a fact, like Dhruva Ati Bolito Matai. Dhruva means the pole star around which other stars are thought to be orbiting. It's fixed. So this is fixed forever. This will never change. Your life will be perfect to the extent to which, by the way you conduct yourself, Radharani is pleased. Buddy. So this is very powerful. You know that about me? My goodness. You see, this is the power of Rag Bhakti. We talked about how Krishna said, well, people approach me for things, it doesn't do anything for me. People approach me to get away from things. Well, I send them into the Brahman, retire them there. People approach me out of dutiful worship. It's good, but it gets a little old standing up here by myself. But the way the gopis have approached, the way the Brajbasis approach, that's giving me life. That animates me, right? When my mother chastises me, it's more pleasing than the sound of the Vedas and so forth, right? So, yeah, what was the point? This is Krishna. Yeah. So the point is that Raga Bhakti, this kind of ideal, what is the power of that? People approach Krishna for things, to get away from things, or to approach him dutifully in Vaidhi Bhakti, out of love, because it's the duty. God should be worshipped. But this Raga Bhakti is about following the associates of Krishna, right? Or the very life of Krishna, these associates, and how they love him. And if you have an interest in that, how rare is that? So many people approaching for things, to get away from things, and again, to worship him dutifully because it should be done. But who cares about him? I should do it because the scripture says so. It's the right thing to do, so I will do it. I mean, they do love Narayan, but it's not the same, right? This is like just, yeah. And indeed, the gopi said, well, throw out the scripture then. Yeah, if that's necessary to meet him, we'll throw out the scripture. That's how you feel about me. Wow, how attractive. So if you have this idea, this is my ideal, so easily you will get Krishna's attention, even though you're not advanced on the path of Rag Bhakti. You may not have full adhikar to tread it entirely. You can embrace aspects of it but this is becomes your ideal. Then you have his attention. You attention by focusing on his associates who are the embodiments of that love, and just the very idea. That's what you want. You want that. Hmm. Me, you want. You don't care about liberation or things, so on and so forth. Any kind of liberation, even going to Vaikuntha? No. You could go soon. Sooner you could go. I'll wait. I'll wait. Good things are worth waiting for. Something like that. Rag Bhakti. So yeah, so this ideal, and when we were talking about what Ramananda Roy, Prabhupada.
Prabhupada's written how he
Yeah, yeah, and the way we could see in the way that Prabhupada is talking to Krishna, that he's counseling about his love life. This is a Narmasaka, this kind of friend. So we can see that Sri Ramanuj could understand from the poem, and he had it memorized. But then he would add to that support based on this poem. I say this, and here's the further evidence. This was his conjecture, you see, further evidence. And I thought, so I began to think about it, is basically what he says. And Swami Maharaj, I say, would affectionately refer to Prabhupada by his sannyas name. Swami Maharaj was born in the family of those of Sakiras community of Saptagram, of West Bengal, huge mercantile community that was particularly favored by Nityananda Ram. And he came from that whole family. Prabhupada's patron saint of his family was Udarandata Thakur, the right-hand man of Nityananda Prabhu, one of his Gopals in Krishna Lila, one of his friends in Krishna Lila. And he put the Krishna Balaram in the altar and center altar in Vrindavan, and he went established Gaur Nityananda deities everywhere, and Radha and Krishna, but Bhakti Siddhanta didn't establish Gaur Nityananda deities everywhere. So he there was a number of things, right, that he pulled together. This is a spiritual kind of a conjecture. This is what we do. So this, my point, is what Ramananda Roy, or excuse me, what Kavi Karnapur is doing in Gorgana Deshtipika. How he's arriving at his conclusions. There are conjectures, but it's not just some kind of, like she said, it's mental speculation. Yeah, no, this kind of conjecture. It's how to use your intelligence in Krishna service. It has a role to play, right? Shastra Yukti, this kind of reasoning, right? And so this is what Kavi Karnapur is doing, and he states it at the beginning of his book. I researched this from Shastra and from interviewing other devotees and so on and so forth. And in some places he entertains that there are different opinions. He tells some devotees feel so and so is like this, and some feel like that. And in some places he says, and this one person is two people in Gaur Leela. It kind of spins your head a little bit. But when we come to Ramananda Roy, then this is about 4 verses that he employs to explain the inner life of Ramananda Roy, and it's not a very well understood section of the Gauraganadesh Dipika. He says, some people say that he is Pandava Arjun and Arjun of Braj and Narmasaka combined. And then he says, others say that he is Lalita. But Mahaprabhu Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says he is Pandava Arjun. Others say he's Arjuniya. And I like that opinion. So what is he saying here? He says, some people say, and why is he doing it? He says, some people say that Ramananda Roy is Pandava Arjun combined with the bhava of the Priyanarmasaka Arjun of Braj. Why are they saying that? Because Ramananda Roy spoke with Krishna in the with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I should say, in their conversation, right, that I was referring to earlier. And it comes all the way to Braj Bhakti and Radha Dasyam and all these things, which Pandava Arjun wouldn't necessarily be too well informed about. But Mahaprabhu said he's Pandava Arjun, so that has to be the center. We have to work around that. This was his thinking. Mahaprabhu said he's Pandava Arjun. Maybe there's something more as well, but it couldn't contradict that point. So he's anchored, his conjecture is anchored in what Mahaprabhu has said about him. But some people have added, oh, because of that combined influence of Arjun Sakha and Braj, therefore he was able to speak like this. They're trying to understand. Mahaprabhu said he's Pandava Arjun, but how could he know all these things about Braj, right? Yeah, I've said, well, he heard the Bhagavad Gita really well, and it's hidden in there, hidden in there. So there can be different ways to explain it. But when he says, some people say he's Lalita, but Mahaprabhu says that he's Pandava Arjun. What Kami Karnapur is saying is he's not Lalita. Some people say he's Lalita. He says it very politely, but Mahaprabhu said he's Pandava Arjun. So that should be discarded, that idea. Then he says, and others say he's Arjuniya. I like that idea. And Arjuniya is it's said in one of the Puranas that one day Arjun, Pandava Arjun, asked Krishna, well, what's the nature of that gopis? I heard about that. You had some affair with these gopis. What's that all about? And Krishna said, oh, well, listen, go to Vrindavan and there's a lake over here. You go bathe in that lake. So this is a very interesting instruction because we're used to learning and knowing things in a very different way, right? Some things can't be communicated verbally. This is the message. So he said, go bathe in the lake. Do something that doesn't make any sense. People think all the things we do don't make much sense. Jumping around, chanting, mumbling some words over and over again, and that you think you're going to know, everything that needs to be known by that. Meanwhile, through the exercise of reason and logic unto itself, nobody's arrived at perfect knowledge yet. Right? It's been going on for centuries. And what is the result of perfect knowledge? We seek perfect knowledge that our actions might be perfectly informed, that by them we might become perfectly happy. Now, who by the exercise of reason and logic alone has become perfectly happy? You can't find anyone. But you can find perfectly happy people in the spiritual schools. Right? You can, especially in our school, you can find that. So you have to look and see. Maybe there's more to knowing than logic can afford. Indeed, by reasoning, we conclude that. By reasoning itself, we conclude that life does not move. It moves. If you give, you receive. It makes no sense. If you give, you should have less. But the fact is, if we give, we become more. We can't hold it up and say, see, I gave more. I gave you 10 of us. See, now I got 100. That's not like that. But when you give, you become more. And other people can see it. She's more. He's bigger. In a qualitative sense, right? This is mysterious. It's not logical. It's translogical. So by reason, we can come to the conclusion that life moves in a way that transcends the limits of reason and intellect. It's bigger than intellect. It doesn't fit between the ears only. We want to insist that God appear in the court of reason. He's not going to show up. If reason is the judge and jury, he's not going to show up. It's beneath him. It's beneath the Atma to show up. If you say, I don't believe in a soul, let's reason it out. It's beneath the Atma to even show up. Because you can't reason without consciousness. And do we believe in a soul? We say, well, do you believe in consciousness? It's kind of a stupid question, isn't it? You understand? Do you believe in a soul? How stupid are you? Do you believe in a soul? Well, let's ask it properly. Do you believe in consciousness? Right? Without consciousness, you can't believe in anything. Right? Consciousness is the basis of everything. And this is, of course, the beauty of the Hindu tradition. You're not going to find out what a soul is from reading the Bible, I can tell you that. And nothing wrong with the Bible, but it just doesn't go that far. What is consciousness, the nature of consciousness? This is the whole subject of the Hindus. This is the whole preoccupation, all of Vedanta, right? There are different opinions, but they have some common ground, right? And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will give the highest prospect of the Atma. Atma's the self, consciousness. What is the consciousness of consciousness? That is what we're about. That is Ananda, love. Being, knowing arises out of loving, not the other way around. Loving doesn't arise naturally out of just being, or being a being that's conscious of itself. But if the being is loving, then it has to exist and it has to know. Everything coming out of loving. If being, knowing, and loving is everything, it all comes out of love. So yeah, do you believe in consciousness? Is kind of a silly question, right? This is the Atma, this is the self. Save it, save that thought, okay? Save that thought for later. So Ramananda Roy, so Kavi Karnapur is, yeah, we'll get there, yeah. He says, Arjuniya, right? So Krishna sent Arjun to the lake to bathe, that he could know, right? Ways that he would not otherwise. And he came out at the lake and he was in a gopi deha, in the form of a gopi. And some gopis came and talked to him and spent the day with him. And then he was to go back to the lake and bathe again. He came out, he was Pandava Arjun, he came back. Now he knew something about Gopi Bhav, right? So Kavi Karnapur says, like, that's where he got the Gopi Bhav information from, right? A day as a gopi, a day in the life of a gopi. But of course, I look at these kind of stories in the Puranas, a story like that about Narada also. The stories are really about emphasizing the beauty, the exalted nature of Gopi Bhav, more than they are about, now Arjun has a form called Arjuni out there somewhere, or Narad has a form out there as a gopi somewhere. Even the stories don't tell us that. For a day, okay, something like that. They have their Sthai Bhav, right? Pandava Arjuna is the friend of Krishna. So for a day, Krishna, it's telling us something else, right? But anyway, some of the devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thought like this. Well, okay, let's say he's Arjuniya. So then what he's giving there is three choices. Lalita, no. Maybe a combination of Pandava Arjun and Narmasaka Arjun. The interesting thing about that, of course, is that, well, then he's a unique entity. He's not a particular entity in Braja Leela. He's a combination of two. Or maybe we look at him as Arjuna or something like that. It was later, 100 years later, that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur wrote a similar book, like Gorgon and Deshtipika, and he reasoned there that Lalita, not Lalita, Vishaka, Vishaka. He reasoned that Arjuna is an expansion of Vishaka. Therefore, we look at our Ramananda Roy as Vishaka. And a lot of devotees seem to like that. And they caught on to that. But these different opinions, but these are different conjectures, right? And they give supporting, data and so forth and so on. So, so Ramananda Roy, anyway, interesting person. And somehow we got talking about him, right? From talking about Arjuna and Bhagavad Gita, somehow related to the preface of this sacred text. Mm, mm, sacred text and sacred texts in general and how they have been written hundreds of years ago to a particular audience and so forth, right? And how there needs to be an ongoing tradition of commentary to bring out, make relevant the texts for the time. Text is a passive agent of divinity. The sadhu is an active agent that brings it to life in our times, brings out new light from it, and so on and so forth, right? Mm. So I missed a link there, but somehow good points were raised. And here we have a sacred preface in a book in our modern times that is written in consideration of our present audience, times, and so forth, seeking to make also this particular ideal of Sakirasa um, accessible to people. You can read, for example, translations of the Goswami's books that are literal. It's very difficult to access what the feeling of the text. You don't have cultural fluency, you don't have linguistic fluency, and all that they're about and all that the feeling in them difficult to draw from. So the task for us in our time is to bring out the feeling, to get the feeling from the text, and then re-explain it, right, in your own language and so forth. So we've, the Sacred Preface is kind of an example. If you can look at a lot of books that have been translated in our times, and they have a Mangalacharan in there. This is different structure, but the essential ingredients are present there. And so we discussed in the previous class the Namaskar verse, right? I'll read it, and then we'll go on to the Bhastanadesh shloka of the sacred preface. But what I'm saying about the language of the book is what it carries throughout. So the translations are all adaptions and the poetic expressions of what the verse really feels like and all of the implications that all that I could draw from that are carried in that particular verse. So a sacred preface should include a prayer, namaskar, and praise of the deity that presides over the pages of a Smriti text. In this text, the deity is the duad of the Yugal and Yugal, the Yugal Krishna, Balaram, and this is its Namaskar verse. So I have a Sanskrit for it, but I just put the English in here. I serve the shelter-giving Sri Sri Ram Krishna of white and black complexion, both beautiful and benevolent. They are constituted of condensed prema rasa. Masters of great masters, these two brothers live in cow pastures. They are the very life therein of both the cowherds and the cows, and as such, they are absorbed in astounding leelas with their gopas, each of whose person is composed of pranay. So we discussed this at length. What is pranay, and what is the significance of their living in cow pastures, where you wouldn't expect to find God, the God of gods, but how it actually makes sense. So I won't go over that again, but let's go to the Vastanadesh shloka, the verse that explains, in essence, what the book is about. What then, preface continues, in essence, does the text concern? This too is revealed at the text outset in the Vasudhaiva verse. What can be said about the gift of Gaur, Sham's Brajalila, about which the Upanishads are stunned in a near silence and left to mumble barely coherent phrases such as Shamat Chavalam Prapadye, Shabalach Chamam Prapadye. What then to speak of the gift, the giver of this gift, Gaur himself, is Nam, Rup, Guna, Leela, Parshadas, and of the Avadut Nitai, who gave us Gaur, his gift, and more. Nityananda Ram personifies the Sakyaras explained in depth by Sri Rupa, and his pupils shared it near and far, serving Krishna Balaram. Surely that is what friends are for, but more, that friend is best who, with sympathy, reminds Shyam of the girl that he adores. Jai Radhe, Jai Shyam, Gurupakari, Smritida Priyanam. I have to unpack it. There's a lot said there, right? So, what can be said about the gift of Gaur? Sham's Brajalila, about which the Upanishads are stunned into near silence and left to mumble barely coherent phrases such as Shamat Chavalam Prapadye, Shavalat Chamam Prapadye. So the gift of Gaur, of course, that's very important. But as this verse goes on to say, what to speak then of the giver of this, Gaur himself? So before we speak about the Upanishadic statement, there is the gift of Gaur, and then there's Gaur, right? So when his gift is the Braj Leela, right? He opens the doors to the Braj Leela for us. That's a wonderful gift. Now, what happens when somebody gives you a beautiful gift? I'll tell you what happens to me. When somebody gives me a gift, then, well, I think of the giver, right? If someone gives me soap, every time I take a shower, I think he gave me that soap bar. I wonder what he's doing right now. May he be blessed. Right? So it doesn't have to be a big gift necessarily. So the giver is in the gift, and the giver is more than the gift, right? Pujapad Maharaj used to say, first the giver, then the gift. So as we said earlier, our pranam to Gaur Leela first. Then we'll may have access to Krishna Leela. And in the middle of Krishna Leela, we'll find ourselves back in the Gaur Leela. Gaur Leela is the more of Krishna Leela, the more. Krishna's capacity was, to the extent that it was facilitated by the Braj Leela on human, on earth. He came to earth for that, to play it out in human society. Some limitation was found there. He found that Radha tastes rasa more than him. So being a rasika, he had to find out about that. And so anyway, so Gaur Leela follows as an encore, as we said earlier, for Krishna Leela. So he is the gift. And there's a verse of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami that Puja Patrita Maharaj liked to cite. He said that Gaur Leela is the fountain from which streams of Krishna Leela are flowing in all directions. So you could have Krishna Leela without Gaur, but you can't have Gaur Leela without Krishna. So you can see how rich it is, how complete it is. Right? So first, the gift. What can be said about the gift of Gaur, which is Shyam's Braja Leela? And what about Gaur himself? But the Upanishads, what can be said about the gift of Gaur, Shyam's Braja Leela, about which the Upanishads are stunned in near silence when they utter mumble things that sounds like mumbling. What does it mean? So I cited a verse from Chandogya Upanishad 8:13:1. This verse says, from black comes diversity, as a horse shakes off the dust, or as the moon frees itself from Rahu, I will attain Brahmaloka. What the heck does that mean? This is the Upanishads. What the heck? Right? So it requires some commentary, and there for the schools of Vedanta, translating, commenting. What does that mean? What is being said here? Right? These are like someone went inside, had some experience, and tried to talk about it, and they were practically stunned from talking at all. But coming back to external consciousness, they uttered something, as the horse shakes off the dirt, as the moon frees itself from the mouth of Rahu. From black, from 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 black, we'll go to variety. It's like, that's what I say. This is talking. Now, I'll tell you this. This verse is talking about the Braja Lila. This is what this is a Gaudiya perspective, but this is, I'll show you. It's quite literal explanation, right? But overall, these Upanishads, they can't. It requires we Gaudiyas to explain the Upanishads to everybody to make perfect sense out of them. What to explain fully what's being implied there. This because once Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come, it becomes possible through the grace of Rup Sanatan and so forth, and our founding acharyas, who, as I said, turned his ecstasy and is like the waterfall of his ecstasy into a lake that we could approach through their text and so forth, right? So now we can go back and look at the Upanishads since Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared. Now we can make more sense out of them than any other prior commentary has, and see how beautiful it is. But otherwise, we think without that they fall a little short, right? As Mahaprabhu said, Shrotamapi Upanishadam Dure Harikatamrita. The sounds of the Upanishads, they fall a little short. There may be a shorthand. We need the longhand. We need the explanation. They're cryptic notes. We need the longhand. Right? So, what does it mean? Sham, of course, well, dark. I mean, that sounds like Krishna, right? Shama, Shama Chavalam Prapadye. So it says, I surrender to the black, by which I will get the variegated. Now, what it means here is that the white is the opposite of black, and it has all colors, and black has no colors, right? You're an artist, you know what I'm talking about. So black, he's talking about Krishna. He used to say it poetically, Shamaj Chabalam Prapaje, Shamaj, black and white, he's saying, with Shabalam, 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 Shabalam. And when we talk about variegated, we could say that Krishna is one, Sham is one, and his energies are many. Shvetashvatara Upanishad, what does it say? Rasya Shaktir Vibhadaya Vishuyate. Such a core Upanishadic verse for Gaudiya Vaishnavism. He is one, he has one Shakti appearing in many forms. So there's Krishna, and then there is his Swarup Shakti, which is bhakti, which brings the variegatedness to Brahman and makes the Leela go round. And the deity presiding over that entirety of the internal energy, this is Radha. and her complexion is fair. His is black. So by surrendering to Sham, we will get Radha. By surrendering to Radha, this is how it goes. This is how Gaudiya Vaishnavism goes, right? By the grace of the Guru, by the grace of Krishna, we will get the Guru, representative of Radha, the internal Shakti, and by the grace of the Guru in Bhakti, we will get what? We will get both Sham and Radha. This is what it's saying. It, like a horse shakes off the dust. What? So, like the moon escapes from the mouth of Rahu, I will attain the Brahmaloka. So here, Brahmalok, Brahma means spirit. Brahmalok in the fullest sense, that means Golok. Alok, a spiritual abode where the dark and the light one are present, right? Where Brahman is moving. So there has to be the variegated energy that Radha personifies. Surrender to Krishna, you will get Radha. If you approach Krishna, right, you'll get bhakti. By, by pursuing bhakti, you will get Krishna. You will attain Brahmalok. And the pursuit of that, what follows from the surrender to Krishna is that you get bhakti. By surrendering to bhakti, then you have to shake off the dirt like a horse. Like that. That's what it means. You have to cheto darpana marjanam. That's what the horse is about. You have to cleanse the mirror of the chitta, right? Of all these impressions from the material world that are causing you to act in ways that are not in your interest and so forth. Shake it off. This is so it talks about a high thing, attaining it through Radha and Krishna, Krishna and Bhakti, which are one and different, and then goes to the beginning. Like a horse, shake it off. Like the moon escapes from the mouth of swallowing Radha. Come out, Rahu swallowing the moon. Come out, shine like the moon, bright, full that you are, something like that. So it's a nice verse, actually. It lends itself very much to a Gaudiya explanation, as you can see. But it's kind of a mumbling otherwise without being explained. And the fact of the matter is that this Leela and that the doors to which, if you will, opened by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in such a big way, the Upanishads are stunned by this, stunned by it. Rupa Goswami says it another way. He says, all these gems of the Upanishad, these statements, Tattvamasi, Neti, Neti, Aham Brahmasmi, they're giving light, but all that light is only shining on two syllables, Krishna. The light of lights, and what you can get from those two syllables. Rupa Goswami says, oh my God, these two syllables, they enter my ear and go into my heart, they come back out on my tongue, and I cannot do justice to them with one tongue, and I cannot do justice to them from two ears. I better make some disciples. Get more ears and more tongues to take advantage of this sound, right? It's a madness. Guru is in great need, great necessity, very much lacking in the face of all that's found in just these two syllables alone, right? Drove Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mad. So what an extraordinary thing. The point is here, the subject of this book is beyond the secrets of the Upanishad, where they're just kind of vaguely and in difficult to understand language, mumbling about, stunned by it, to think about it, stunned almost in silence, can't say anymore. Yeah, it must come and show itself, right? And as it does through Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, what then to speak of the giver of this gift, Gaur, and his Nam, Rup, Guna, Parshadas, and Leelas? It doesn't come alone, right? And of the Avanut Nitai, who gives the gift of Gaur. This is, of course, quite central to the book. He gives Gaur. Gaur gives the gift, and so he's important. right? More so than the gift, you've explained. But Nitai gives gore. So what is his position? Even more significant. He's given the giver of the gift. Nitai Chand Ki Jai. It means that, and it's explained in the book too, without Nityananda Prabhu, there'd be no Sampradaya. He started the whole Sampradaya. Hmm? When he came, only what, less than a year after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu manifested himself as a Vaishnava, he began his Nam Sankirtan. Nityananda arrived, and he was there for maybe 8 months before um, Mahaprabhu was going to take sannyas, and Nityananda is commissioned to preach in West Bengal and so forth. And Nityananda went and started the whole sampradaya in Saptagram. There are so many lineages, all Sakiras lineages. He found out the Dwadasa Gopals. He picked them up, his eternal associates, Udaradatta Thakur, Gauridas Pandit, and so forth. Set up little preaching centers. There was a community that had been more or less excommunicated from the Hindu social religious community for not for good reasons, that they were abused. They were like socially disenfranchised. Nityananda Prabhu went and picked them up. They were nominally Vaishnavas. He made them really substantial Vaishnavas and replaced all the rituals of Nam Sankirtan of Varnashram with one ritual, Nam Sankirtan. Every man, woman, and child could participate in all at once. And there are some nice statements from the 16th century explorers, European explorers. I think the Dutch coming to this Saptagram area, which was on the Ganga and center for trade. And I've read descriptions, and in every house they were singing and with before the idols everywhere. It was such a beautiful place, an abundance of food and festivity and religious sentiment and culture, arts, and so forth. Mm, mm. They all Nityananda Prabhu did this, right? I said all earlier, I cited Vrindavan Das Thakur says, the Nityananda Prabhu gave a Gopi Bhakti. He says Gopi Bhakti, Gopi Bhav to the world. Because he pointed to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hmm? He told people, chant Gaura's Nam, follow his teachings, right? And I'll be purchased by you. So while Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is pointing to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the giver, and his gift, and wanting people to take advantage of it, inadvertently, some people have become associates of Nityananda Prabhu himself, following the same bhava. It's a secondary role. It's a supporting role, right, in the drama. The main theme is the Parakiya Bhav, but it's being supported by Sakirasa, headed by Nityananda Prabhu. So we have to turn to him, how significant he is. Nitai, who gave us Gaur, his gift, and more. Nityananda Ram personifies the Sakirasa explained in depth by Sri Rupa and his pupils, shared it near and far, serving Krishna and Balaram. It's unfortunate, but I've heard today in our Gaudiya Vaishnava community worldwide, people say things like, "What's this Sakirasa? No place for this in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. There's no acharya I've ever been in Sakirasa." Forgot about one of them. What's his name? Nitya. How do you pronounce that? A small, some guy. I don't know. It's Balaram himself, for God's sake. And unfortunately, over the centuries, some people try to turn him into Radha. That's a whole. I've explained that whole problem and so forth as well in the text. So it contains elements of this, explaining the place of it, the history, the underlying theology, philosophy, the way of Sambandhanuga, the way to attain, and so forth. What are you not Rupanugas? Is that it? They try to intimidate in this way. This is very foolish. Rupa Goswami, we've written about that. What is you can't, no one anywhere in all of history has revealed as much and as considerable about the nature of Sakirasa than Rupa Goswami. It's just incredible. Nuance, different types of Sakirasa, some different types, and all the details about them. What are the anubhavs of each type? What are the anubhavs that are common to all of them? What are the sattviga bhavs, and with examples? So it's an extraordinary revelation. He imagined the Priya Narmasaka. They're not found in aesthetic literature as as companions of the hero in his romantic life. He imagined them. He had them in his spiritual imagination. He found them, brought them, and it comes to that here too, right? Surely, what Nityananda Prabhu has done, and that is what friends are for, and more. That friend is best, who, with sympathy, reminds Sham of the girl that he adores. Garopakari Smritida Priyanam. So the book is about Sakiras, but it also centers on this type of friend. There are sakas, there are suhrit sakas, there are priya sakas, there are priyanarma sakas. The priyanarma saka, especially as it is Sakiras, is influenced by Madhurya, and it causes it to intensify and exceed in excellence that of Sakiras unto itself, and affords those types of friends access to playing a sympathetic role and an empathetic role in the love life of Radha and Krishna. They're servants of Radha and they're friends of Krishna at the same time. And this is a prominent influence of we find Gopakumar, for example, in this Baba, and his student. What is his name? In Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Also of this type. Narada Muni in the first canto of Brihad Bhagavatamrita, the expansion of Madhu Mangal, who's a Narmasaka. And this statement that I closed this verse with, Garopakari Smitida Priyanam, this comes there in the first canto. It's the Mahavakya of the first canto of Gopal, of Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Because Narada is searching, what are the highest devotees? Everyone's highest, but from our vantage point down here, we make these kind of calculations without offending any other rasa. And he goes, he visits Hanuman, and he visits Shiva and the Pandavas, Yadavas, and so on and so forth. Uddhava, he goes to Dwarka, right? And there he speaks in such a way that Krishna falls into a trance. That's Jagannath. We talked about him last night. He falls into a trance thinking about the gopis' love. And because it causes a huge confusion in Dwarka. And when Krishna comes out of the trance, Narada apologizes. He says, I've come here and I've caused a disturbance, right? This is what he thought. And Krishna says, don't think like that. Guru Upakari Smritida Priyanam. The Upakari, the best friend, is one who reminds one of his beloved. That you've reminded me of my beloved. That trance is not a bad thing. It may look bad when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was weeping and falling on the ground. This is your goal? Can it be like that? What does Chaitanya Charitamrita say about the character of Prem? What is that verse? He says that the Adbhuta Charit, the wonderful characteristic of Prem, that is that. Yeah, I know the English. I'm trying to think of the Bengali. I can't remember the moment. That on the outside, it's like poison. It burns like fire. It looks like poison. But uh, on the inside, it is Ananda, right? What is that verse? I know it so well. I'm older now. I forget things. Bhaya Bisha Jala, Bhaya outside, Bisha Jala Hoi. It's like looks very disconcerting. Bhaya Bisha Jala Hoi. Bitare Anandamoy. Inside it is Anandamoy, full of Ananda. Bhaya Bisha Jala Hoi. Bitare Anandamoy. Krishna Premer Adbhuta Charita. Krishna Premer of Prem to Krishna, the Adbhut, the wonderful characteristic. This is the wonderful characteristic of prem. Outside, it looks very disconcerting, but inside it is anandamoy. Hmm? Anandamoy, full of ananda. Hmm? And the sadhana bhakti is also like that. You have to shave your head. What? They say, you can't do this, you can't do that. Looks common people, they reply like that. Looks disconcerting to me, but no, it's even in sadhaka life, it is full of joy. Hmm? So this is the characteristic of praying, and so what so fully demonstrated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that it looks disconcerting, his ecstatic transformations and so forth. Right? Hmm. That is our goal. Hmm. So Krishna replied to Narada like this. I was in a trance, like remembering the Braj Gopis. You reminded me, you were my dearest friend. You didn't disturb me at all. No, Golopakari, Smriti Dapriyanam. And then Nard began chanting in Sankirtan, hmm, names of Krishna, reminding him further of his Gopi Bhav. Hmm. Narada Muni Bhajai Vena Radhika Ramana Name. Right? That's what he does. Hmm. Narada Muni Ki Jai. So this is what the book is about in essence. And we'll stop there. Are there any questions? Yes.
Song.
You found a song.
There is a song written by Srila Prabhupada. So I remember, and maybe some devotees that are from Wrocław temple, I remember when Mahavishnu Swami appeared, like almost 30 years ago in the temple. So he was he was singing this. The official name of this Krishna Tada Punya Navadvaya is Bhagavan Krishna Pada Padma Radhana.
Yeah.
So Mahavishnu Swami was singing this and also discussing this.
Which Mahavishnu Swami?
Vishnu Swami that is now in Mexico and in Sankirtan.
The British one or the Indian
Yes.
one?
Yes,
Okay.
So maybe someone remember he was singing this song, and he was reading translation and discussed this, and I was young devotee. So when started this part that says that Prabhupada says how he is feeling,
Yeah.
this sakeras, and it struck me as well. Prabhupada is revealing his Swarup here.
Prabhupada what?
Is revealing his Swarupa
Uh-huh.
directly. So it's almost like he's saying, okay, I'm friend of Krishna in Golok,
Yeah.
in this song.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. We sung this song and that's all. That's all. But I was remembering and I discussed, probably I was not discussing this with anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And just now when you thought about this, then okay, now I remember everything very clearly.
Mm.
And I was singing this song a few times on occasion of Prabhupada's appearance day. And Niraduna's family, that's the only recording I heard, did it in his, I don't know, late 90s. But it was nice song here. But no translation, etc. So you could not find this song in standard songbook in ISKCON. I don't know what is the reason. I can just only guess. But because we know this song Makine Bhagavata Dharma, that was
Yeah.
also written on Java, but not this one. And you know, I remember this song, so now you you told about this, and this struck me so much. Yeah, I don't know. We can only guess why this song is not.
Well, I'll say a few things. I
Yeah.
reiterate maybe what I said earlier. One of the things about this song is to note is that it was written by Prabhupada as in bhajan, as a private moment of his. It wasn't written for public consumption. He didn't have that in mind. Later, some of his disciples found the poem, right? And I don't think it was understood by his disciples very well. In fact, they translated it wrong. Yeah, they translated it Tomano Milane by, oh, my dear brothers, please listen, rather than my dear friend Krishna. Bhai means brother. They translated in the plural. Dear brothers, please listen. If you serve Radharani, your life will be successful. So, but the prayer is to Krishna. Robert's writing heartfelt to Krishna, to his friend. My dear friend, my Tomar Mai, your Tomala Milane by no, that's what is it? Taba Punya Habe, what is it? Krishna Taba Punya Habe Bhai. So he's addressing it to Krishna. So they didn't understand that. And that's one thing. And Prabhupada didn't hand it down also as songs of Bhakti Vinod and Narottam Thakur, which he did hand down to us to sing, and they're incorporated in different songbooks and so on and so forth. So it's a bit of a gem, if you will, that is kind of remained hidden. And Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj knew it by heart. And he brought it out with the proper translation, a very rasic commentary on the Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj, Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj. He gave a rasic commentary on it. And then he began to expand upon that, as I said, by supporting. He's here, he's speaking about Sakra, he's speaking to his friend. He says, oh, my dear friend Krishna, here's a situation, I want to tell you, if Radharani is pleased with you, your life will be successful, right? And by the way, Radharani's representative, Nayanamani Manjari, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, asked me to preach in the Western world and distribute the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But I'm so unqualified. I don't have the adhikar for this, but I want to do my Guru Maharaj's service, which is their service of Radharani, and Radharani be pleased if you please her. So you should give me the power to do that. This is how he prays in the song, but you have to have the right person to bring it all out, right? And then we should add, then we think, well, what do you think? Did Krishna agree? I think so. He gave him a lot of power, right, to do the work of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He said, if you'll give me the power to do that, then when I'm done, this will be my prayer, like this. I will join you in the Leela, herding cows all day long and so forth. That's this part of the second half of the poem towards the end. So it's very powerful, but it's one of the most significant contributions of Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj to Prabhupada's disciples that unfortunately still not too many have taken advantage of. But we all, so many of us, all had a sense that Prabhupada was in Sakirasa, if we thought about it in ISKCON. But Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj took this poem and interpreted it, explained it properly and so forth, revealing this, and then giving the supporting evidence. He did this, this is all indicative of that. Now therefore, this is my conclusion, he said. That was very powerful. What a wonderful thing if your guru has passed away, right? And his godbrother shows you, many of my godbrothers thought we don't need to learn about Prabhupada from Sridhar Maharaj. We're his disciples. We know what Prabhupada wanted. Hmm? What does he know? If he becomes involved in ISKCON, then there may be confusion because Prabhupada told us to do like this and Prabhupada like that, and we know what Prabhupada wanted, and Prabhupada wanted the GBC, and Prabhupada wanted us to be Krishna conscious. Oh yeah, that too. And where does it end up, right? Where is he now? Maybe now you should think about that. Prabhupada oftentimes told us maybe you should boil the milk now. We have enough people. Maybe we should boil the milk. What a better time than when he's passed on. Hmm? You want to remember him. Should you remember him by just trying to do the same things, but maybe look inside. Hmm? This is what Sridhar Maharaj was not without trying. This is what he was doing. And if you look at it, perfect advice. Huh? What perfect? And because the ISKCON had new gurus, and it would have been really good for them to go inward. Hmm? Instead of just campaigning outward and having to have a limousine to do so or whatever, a pink Cadillac. It was a pretty wild time in those days when they began, trying to walk in Prabhupada's shoes. It was uncomfortable for many of us. So I have some more experience that some of you have and have come to me as a result of it. Problem. That they reflected, they stayed under the Siksha of Sridhar Maharaj and gone deeper into what Gaudiya Vaishnavism is about and so forth, to everyone, right? They could have passed that down. So they would have nourished themselves and put themselves in a better position to then canvas and accept new students and so on. They could have grown the movement as an overflowing of the milk boiling, right? So that didn't happen. And in fact, they are mandated that no one could go and see Sridhar. But they said, if you want to associate with anyone outside of ISKCON, take Siksha, you can't be in ISKCON. So I followed the GBC when I was out of ISKCON. Because I could understand this is where's the Guru Parampara? I was sitting with Prabhupada. When Prabhupada was passing about a month before, we were doing like all night kirtan, 24-hour kirtan. I had the shift between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. was my shift for chanting, which is alone. Prabhupada had a personal assistant there if anything came up. But so I was there chanting and just playing the kartals and chanting for 2 hours. And I was chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, which is a melody, if you will, that Prabhupada gave us, which had no like musical kind of embellishment, Hare Krishna, none of that, And Prabhupada, didn't like that so much because he was concerned that the music would become, what this is about. It's a musical event rather than an event which gives rise to your material emotions and so forth, and then you misconstrue them for spiritual emotions and say that was ecstatic, Prabhu. So. It's not a form of entertainment. I mean, so it's a sacrifice, Nam Sankirtan. It's a Sankirtan Yagya, right? It's a religious sacrifice. So anyway, I was thinking like that. So I want to chant like a bona fide melody here, for the pleasure of Prabhupada. And so Prabhupada was lying on his bed, and then he was very ill, weak, but he got up a little bit, looked at, and I was at his feet, and he said, "Who is that chanting?" His assistant was right there. He said, "Oh, that's Triparama is chanting." And I was in my mind, I was thinking, Prabhupada, I just want to be connected to the Parampara. You may be passing. I want to be connected to the Guru Parampara. This is my lifeline, How, by your grace, please keep me connected always. This was my prayer while I was chanting. And Prabhupada heard me. Of course, he couldn't understand. He looked up and he said, "Who is that chanting?" That was Triparama. She said, "Oh." And he nodded his head like, and so I thought, oh, he's blessed me like this. And then shortly thereafter, my God, Brother Tamal Krishna Maharaj asked Prabhupada that if you were to pass away, you know, in the days coming, which is possible, how will we perform the samadhi, the funeral rites, because we didn't know how to do that. So then he said, so that you can ask Narayan Maharaj of Mathura, who presided over the ritual of Prabhupada's sannyas, and he was informed about those things. And Prabhupada had a friendly relationship with him. He was like a nephew of Prabhupada. Prabhupada took sannyas from Pujapad Narayan Maharaj's guru, Bhakti Keshava Maharaj. So then Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, Prabhupada, after you pass away, is there anybody else that we can associate with? And I was massaging Prabhupada's feet at the time, and Prabhupada said, for philosophy, my godbrother B.R. Sridhar Maharaj of Navadvip. That's the last thing he said about Sridhar Maharaj. The first thing he said was, my godbrother Chitananda Maharaj was in India, and Prabhupada had been in the United States for some time. He had left Chitananda Maharaj in India with another devotee, and he was feeling the need for some siksha. And so he wrote to Prabhupada and said, is there anyone I can visit as a Siksha guru? And Prabhupada wrote in a letter, he said, for that you can go to Sridhar Maharaj in Navadvip. What to speak of how you can benefit from him, I consider him my Siksha guru. That's how Prabhupada introduced Sridhar Maharaj to the society. And then I've cited the first now and the last thing that he said. In between, in one letter, he criticized him. And then some leaders of ISKCON just pulled out that letter. We didn't have internet and database and all those things at that time, you know, to see everything Prabhupada said. They just, see, he criticized Sridhar Maharaj here. We showed the letter to Sridhar Maharaj and said, Swami Maharaj said a friend. Even me, he criticized. Then he put it in context, and he's, you know, and so forth. There was a place for it. But we look at the beginning and the end. The statements are very powerful and conclusive, and he opened the door, if you will, for that. And this is just one of the things that he, you know, just sitting on a veranda, 90% blind, and wondering why he was still alive when Prabhupada and this one, that godbrother had passed away, and he had been, you know, incapacitated from a health point of view for years. And this is what he was there for. Krishna was putting him there just for that, keeping him. And he knew Prabhupada like the back of his hand. He lived for 6 years with Prabhupada in Prabhupada's apartment. Prabhupada had 2 apartments in Calcutta. Gave one to Sridhar Maharaj and one for this family. So he knew him intimately. Prabhupada once said, everything I learned from Sridhar Maharaj. Because Sridhar Maharaj was right there with Bhakti Siddhanta, and Prabhupada was as a householder. And in those 6 years, they wrote their commentaries on the Gita together and so forth. So Prabhupada had great regard for him. And he had great regard for Prabhupada, what Prabhupada did. I mean, you couldn't find a better person for a Siksha guru, just given those facts. And then you look at what he came out with. This is just one thing. This explanation of the song. It's so like, you know, everybody's writing, you know, some glorification of Prabhupada. He passed away. And this is what Sridhar Maharaj has to say about him. It's like, you think that would like make the front page, like, wow, that's a great offering. Holy cow. And, you know, it takes, it's just, you know, so it's unfortunate that his Siksha wasn't taken advantage of. I was able to take advantage. I was blessed by Prabhupada and him both. So that's, if you think I've got anything to offer, that's where it comes from. Right? But it's such a nice thing. So yeah, the prayer is significant, but ISKCON didn't understand it. I'm not faulting them for not understanding it, but once it's revealed, you think you might be faulted them for not taking advantage of it. Pardon me?
Because you thought that Prabhupada taught this when he was almost.
Yeah.
And you were like, you heard this directly.
Yeah.
But Ramakrishna Goswami was there.
Yeah.
So what Ramakrishna Goswami tells to GBC then?
Well, there were many devotees there. The room was, that room was filled with devotees.
So they did.
Well, what happened was, after Prabhupada passed away in the middle of November, then they had an annual meeting in ISKCON in Mayapur, and the GBC would meet there, the managing body. So that comes in March, February, March. So when February, March come around, they had a big meeting, and the main topic was how the succession will go on, and they went to Sridhar Marsh. And then they wrote a paper. It said, in consultation with higher authorities, based on their conversation with Sridhar Marsh. So they went to him, they followed Prabhupada's directive to go to Sridhar Marsh and get advice and so forth. And so Sridhar Marsh was advising them. It went on for a few years. He was advising them, but they were just taking a little bit. And meanwhile, the gurus of ISKCON were, carrying on as gurus and getting, their cars and stuff like that. Got to have wheels and Sridhar Maharaj was just sitting there with a torn cloth on his veranda, Didn't have enough money to finish the temple. And Prabhupada allocated the money to finish the temple from his fund. And then the GBC had somebody going over there asking for accounting from Sridhar Maharaj, accounting. And it got so overbearing that Sridhar Maharaj said, look, Swami Maharaj wanted to give me this money. I'm not here to account for every penny to you. Don't give it to me. Keep it. Leave me alone. Okay. It was like, they were like, let's make sure he's not cheating here, Let's make sure he's not cheating. He was like, he was nice enough about it, but he was insulted by it. So they didn't really know how to deal with him, to take advantage of him. And at a certain point, some of us were not very happy with the spiritual leadership of ISKCON. We weren't being nourished, let's put it like that. We weren't being nourished. And meanwhile, Sridhar Maharaj was, without trying, was like nourishing. And so some of the new gurus, they felt it was a competition. There was a competition that was being, their position would be undermined, something like that. They were having trouble with the service. I mean, it was just obvious to some, but I'm not really. It was a difficult task that they had, but they didn't take advantage. So Sridhar Maharaj, they would come and Sridhar Maharaj would correct them on some things. He wasn't there just to say whatever they wanted. He would preach to them, and so they felt a little uncomfortable with that. They didn't understand some of it. Some of us understood, and then they made a policy: you can't go to Sridhar Maharaj. No. So that's what happened. Yeah. Now, Prabhupada left in 77, and in 82 they cut him off entirely. Nobody could go there anymore. Too many people were becoming attracted. Yeah. And then they started, he's trying to take people away from Prabhupada, and some people said, he says Prabhupada's in Sakya-rasa, therefore they have to go to him to get Madhurya Rasa. He wouldn't say anything like that at all, These kind of things came. So it's a very unfortunate time. It's really not something I like to talk about, to be honest with you. It's done, it's over, it's a past. There might be ramifications that are still out and about today, but that's unfortunate. But we moved on from there. GBC ki jai. Okay. Anything else? What's the time? Time is it? What time?
10 to 12.
What?
10 to 12.
We have to stop. You have a point to make or question to ask? Oh, can you save it for later? Okay. We'll stop now. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhuvyevacha patitanam bhavani vaishnavibhinamo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Om Premananda.